Netflix buried a Disney deal that would have changed everything, and the reason they killed it is something they never wanted you to know. In the spring of 2017, two of the most powerful companies in entertainment had a signed term sheet on the table. Not a licensing agreement, not a content library deal, a production partnership that would have made Netflix the permanent streaming home of Marvel, Star Wars, and the entire Disney vault, with Netflix money funding the originals. You were never supposed to hear this, because 6 weeks after that term sheet was circulated, Disney's lawyers quietly killed it, and what they replaced it with wasn't just a competing platform. It was a calculated act of erasure. But the reason they walked away isn't what Disney ever told the press, and it's worse than you think. To understand how this happened, you have to go back to 2012. That's when Disney first licensed its content to Netflix, Pixar, Marvel, a handful of theatrical releases, in a deal worth roughly $300 million annually by the time it reached full scale. For Netflix, it was transformative. For Disney, it was easy money. Disney's CEO Bob Iger called it a strategic partnership. What he didn't say publicly was that Netflix was already pitching something much bigger. Reed Hastings, Netflix's co-founder and CEO at the time, had a vision that went far beyond licensing. His team proposed what internal documents later described as a co-production infrastructure agreement, a structure where Netflix would invest directly in the production of Disney IP, not just license the finished product. Think Marvel series built from the ground up inside Netflix's system. Think Star Wars limited series with Netflix as the financial backer and distribution partner. Not Disney+, Netflix. The pitch landed on Iger's desk in late 2016. By February 2017, there was a working term sheet. The numbers attached to it were staggering. Netflix was prepared to commit $2.4 billion over 5 years. In exchange, they wanted exclusivity on all Disney live-action streaming content through 2025, co-production credits on Marvel and Lucasfilm projects, and here's the part nobody ever reported, a revenue share clause tied to subscriber growth. Every new Netflix subscriber who engaged with Disney content would trigger a royalty back into Netflix's content fund. Effectively, Disney would be helping finance its own competition. Remember that signed term sheet? Here's where it died. The clause that killed everything wasn't the money. Disney's finance team ran the projections and signed off. The clause that ended the deal was a single line buried in Section 14 of the co-production annex. It granted Netflix co-ownership rights over any character or storyline introduced in a Netflix-funded Disney production. Not licensing rights, ownership. If Netflix money built a new Marvel character, Netflix owned a piece of that character across every medium forever. Disney's legal team flagged it on a Thursday. By Monday, the term sheet was withdrawn. And here is the part they really buried. The decision to kill the deal wasn't made by Iger. It was made by the Marvel division, specifically by the team protecting the IP inheritance structure that Stan Lee and the original Marvel executives had spent decades building. They had watched Sony's Spider-Man licensing situation create decades of legal headaches and lost leverage. They were not going to let Netflix do the same thing through the back door of a production deal. One internal memo, later described in a 2019 Variety investigation that barely made the trades, called the Netflix clause an existential IP risk. That memo went to Iger. Iger agreed, and Disney began accelerating its own platform plans within 48 hours. Disney Plus launched in November 2019. It hit 10 million subscribers on its first day. And every Marvel series, every Star Wars story, every animated special, all of it went there instead of to the platform that had been ready to fund it 2 years earlier. What did we actually lose? Consider that in 2017, Netflix's content team included the showrunners behind Stranger Things, Mindhunter, and Narcos. The production infrastructure they were offering Disney was the most sophisticated in the world at that moment. A Netflix-backed Marvel series in 2018 would have had a completely different creative voice, darker, more serialized, less obligated to serve a theatrical release calendar. The MCU's streaming era might have produced its best work first, instead of its most exhausting work. And Disney Plus, without the pressure to justify its own platform's existence, might never have needed to flood the zone with content just to keep subscribers from canceling. The franchise fatigue you feel right now. It has a direct line back to that Monday morning in February 2017 when Disney's lawyers pulled the term sheet. The question nobody has answered, not Iger in his memoir, not Hastings in any interview, is whether the ownership clause was an accident or a deliberate test. Whether Netflix's lawyers wrote it knowing Disney would never accept it, betting that Disney would walk and be forced to build something that would eventually stretch them past their limits. Disney built the platform. Disney is still struggling to make it profitable, which makes you wonder what other studios have term sheets sitting in a drawer right now, deals that died in a single conversation that nobody is talking about. Warner Bros. Has one, and that story is even stranger.